Hello, Epiphany. I'm David Wang. I'm the Assistant Head of School at the Epiphany School of Global Studies. It's my pleasure to talk with you today about our flexible learning plans and our anticipated plans for the 2021 school year. In planning for this school year, we had to consider many factors in our preparations. COVID-19 restrictions, reduced class sizes, minimizing the total number of students on campus at any one time. With these thoughts in mind, we started to examine the start of the new school year with two goals in mind. One, we wanted to get students back on campus, into buildings, and into classrooms. Two, we wanted to reduce the number of students in any particular grouping at one time. We considered the following ideas in our initial preparations and planning. 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 day on, 1 day off. Students coming in the morning and other students coming in the afternoons. All of these options placed a hardship or an imposition on families and parents because some students would be at home, particularly younger students, potentially unsupervised under any of these options. Additionally, these options would provide a double workload for teachers. They would be preparing materials for in-class instruction and online. We started to examine the core curriculum at Epiphany at any given grade level to determine what are the most important subjects we want to cover, potentially in a modified school year. We also started to examine both campuses to see if we could actually create enough classroom space for separating students into small enough groupings for instruction. Whatever model for learning we landed in for the coming year, whether it was in person or online, we had to create a schedule that allowed for flexibility and continuity. The green, yellow, and blue flexible learning plan that you see behind me allows for students to transition from one plan to another and back again while still maintaining the same classes. The green plan is as close to normal as we could create for the coming year. These are non-physically distanced or socially distanced groupings, regular special routines for our lower school students, intermingling of students into some larger groups, volunteers and visitors would be allowed, students would be able to use lockers and cubbies. This plan, however, does have an altered schedule. So it allows us, if we have to move from green to yellow, we can do that with little interruption. The yellow plan is a modified in-person schedule that centers on the idea of nests. What we would do on both campuses for all grade levels is to create groups of students, no more than 12 students per nest. This allows us to keep those numbers smaller and to minimize the exposure of students to larger groups. In the nest model, students would remain in classrooms throughout the day while teachers traveled throughout the campus. Kind of the opposite of what a typical schedule looks like, where students do the traveling. Teachers would move from classroom to classroom. This works especially well on the lower school and middle school classes, where students take very similar schedules. In the upper school, it's a little more complicated. But because of our Trent campus physical building, we can have students travel from room to room on the exterior of the building, going outside the building and switching classroom to classroom. As students or teachers moved from room to room, they would honor health guidelines and restrictions with hand sanitizers, wearing masks, keeping spaced out distances amongst each other. In the blue plan, if we are forced to go into that plan, that would be an online learning format, but it would be very different than the format we just experienced at the end of this past school year. With that, online learning was really an emergency online learning format where we jumped into it with less than 2 weeks notice. This coming fall, if we have to go to online learning, we have the summer to plan and to make sure that this is an equal type of instruction to the classroom instruction. The blue plan highlights different aspects of online learning that we learned in this past spring work well for our students. Utilization of asynchronous learning, where students are not necessarily required to sit in a seat at home with the teacher online. We'll be utilizing Google Classroom as our learning management systems for both campuses. We'll be working with teachers this summer to make sure that this experience online, if necessary, is better than it was this past spring. Additionally, as we looked at creating these plans, we noticed that the intensive time that students will be in these classrooms may seem increased. So we looked at our academic calendar for the 2021 school year. We made modifications to the fall semester. You'll see in the document that is included with this email information about the new calendar, which breaks up the fall enrichment week into teacher work days spread out throughout the first semester. We took back 6 days and spread them out in roughly 2 days per month, 2 in September, 2 in October, 1 in November, and 1 in December, that allow for Fridays to be teacher work days that give necessary breaks to students and teachers. Throughout the rest of the summer, we ask for families to continue to check their emails, as we will continue to share future communications with you about the coming school year, more details about how the year will work, and ultimately which of these plans we begin the 2021 school year. Finally, as always, we value the partnership of families and Epiphany. We encourage you to stay safe this summer, and we look forward to seeing you again in August.